Cleopatra steps onto the stage of history not as a faded character from dusty scrolls, but as a force of nature, a mind sharpened by knowledge and a ruler forged by chaos. Her voice still drifts across centuries, steady as the Nile and fierce as a desert storm. She wasn't simply the last queen of Egypt. She was its final heartbeat, its final flame, before Rome swallowed the ancient world whole. When she introduces herself, "I am Cleopatra," the world still listens. A childhood written in two languages, two worlds. Cleopatra VII. Theophilopater entered the world in 69 BC in Alexandria, the shimmering intellectual capital founded by Alexander the Great. The city was a mosaic of cultures, Greek scholars debating in marble courtyards, Egyptian priests performing ancient rituals under temple shadows, merchants from across the Mediterranean shouting prices in a symphony of accents. She belonged to a dynasty of Macedonian Greek rulers, the Ptolemies, but she did not live as a foreigner in Egypt. She grew up among Egyptian myths, Egyptian customs, Egyptian landscapes. Where her ancestors kept distance, Cleopatra crossed the threshold. She didn't just hear Egypt, she understood it. Her education was the envy of royalty across continents. She studied mathematics, philosophy, rhetoric, astronomy, governance, medicine, diplomacy, and the subtle art of persuasion. Cleopatra didn't treat languages as tools. She treated them as weapons. She mastered 9 of them. When foreign envoys met her, they couldn't hide behind translators. There was no veil of miscommunication to protect them. Cleopatra heard everything, and she understood what wasn't said. Unlike the kings who came before her, she didn't rule over Egypt. She ruled with Egypt. She became the first of her dynasty to speak the Egyptian language, a deliberate act that wrapped her in the loyalty of her people. History often romanticizes her beauty, but the ancient writers who hated her most admitted something reluctantly. Her real power was her mind, her presence, her intellect. A charm so potent that even her opponents confessed being overwhelmed by her personality. The throne torn apart by family and fear. Cleopatra ascended to the throne beside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was still a child under the control of ambitious advisors. The palace became a chessboard of spies, whispers, and shifting alliances. At the center of it all stood Cleopatra, young but already formidable. Her enemies feared her ability to command loyalty. They feared her intelligence. They feared the way she could bend politics like reeds in the Nile wind. Their solution was simple and cruel. They pushed her out. Cleopatra was forced into exile, stripped of power, her own kingdom barred to her. Many rulers would crumble here. Cleopatra did not. She gathered allies. She calculated her return. She waited for the right storm, and that storm arrived wrapped in a Roman cloak. Julius Caesar enters Egypt, and history shifts. When Julius Caesar sailed into Alexandria, he wasn't just a visitor. He was Rome's most influential general, a man whose decisions rippled across continents. Cleopatra seized the moment with the precision of a master strategist. She famously smuggled herself into his quarters, a dramatic entrance still retold today. Some claim she arrived rolled inside a carpet. Others say she came hidden inside a linen sack. Whatever the method, the result was the same. Cleopatra walked into the room as the underdog and walked out as the future of Egypt. Caesar recognized in her a rare combination of intellect, ambition, and political instinct. Cleopatra regained her throne with his backing, crushing her rivals and stabilizing her authority. Their alliance grew into a partnership, political, personal, and powerful. She bore him a son, Ptolemy XV Caesarion. For a brief, brilliant period, Cleopatra stood beside Caesar in Rome. The city gossiped, envied, and trembled at her influence. She represented a world older than Rome and a future that threateningly did not include Roman dominance. But Caesar's murder in 44 BC shattered everything. Rome descended into chaos. Cleopatra sailed home with her son. Egypt once again stood surrounded by instability. The arrival of Mark Antony. Fire meets fire. After Caesar's death, Rome fractured into rival factions. One of the most powerful men of the new order was Marcus Antonius, bold, charismatic, impulsive, magnificent in battle, and wild in reputation. He summoned Cleopatra to answer political questions, but what arrived was not a nervous queen. Cleopatra entered Tarsus upon a golden barge draped with purple sails, perfumed with incense that drifted across the water like a spell. She turned diplomacy into theater and Antony into a believer. Their connection was instant, fueled by ambition and chemistry. They needed each other. Egypt needed strength, and Antony needed wealth and allies. Their romance reshaped the Eastern Mediterranean. Together, they envisioned a powerful dynasty. Together, they defied Rome's expectations. Together, they had 3 children, the twins Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, and later Ptolemy Philadelphus. Yet Rome watched with suspicion. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, cast Cleopatra as a manipulative foreign queen, a threat to Roman values, a woman who dared influence a Roman leader. He weaponized propaganda, twisting love into treason and partnership into conspiracy. The world braced for war. Actium, where empires collided. In 31 BC, the fate of empires clashed at the Battle of Actium. Cleopatra and Antony commanded a vast naval force, but Octavian's fleet surrounded them with ruthless precision. The winds, the tides, the morale, everything leaned against the Egyptian-Roman alliance. When Cleopatra's flagship retreated, Antony followed, attempting to regroup. Rome painted this moment as betrayal, but historians argue it was a strategic withdrawal gone wrong. Regardless of the truth, the battle was lost. Their defeat sent shockwaves across the ancient world. Cleopatra and Antony fled to Alexandria, where the walls of fate began to close around them. Supplies dwindled. Allies disappeared. Rome approached like a tightening fist. The tragic conclusion of a legendary alliance. Antony, convinced that Cleopatra had died, chose to end his life rather than face humiliation. When he learned she still lived, he was carried to her bleeding and died in her arms, a scene that poets and historians retell with trembling pens. Cleopatra was left alone to face the inevitable. She knew what Octavian wanted, to parade her through Rome as a chained trophy, proof of his conquest. But Cleopatra was not born to be displayed. She had survived too much, ruled too fiercely, and shaped history too boldly to allow her story to end in chains. In 30 BC, she wrote her own ending. According to the most famous account, she allowed a venomous asp to bite her. An Egyptian queen choosing an Egyptian death in an Egyptian way. Her passing marked the end of the Ptolemaic kingdom and the birth of Roman Egypt. Octavian became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The world shifted into a new chapter, but Cleopatra? She refused to vanish. The legacy that outlived an empire. Cleopatra endures not only because she was queen, but because she defied every limit placed before her. History tried to shrink her down to beauty and scandal, but the truth rises higher. She was multilingual in a world where leaders struggled to read. She was educated in a time when women were denied power. She ruled a nation caught between giants. She reshaped the politics of Rome and Egypt. She stood against empires and refused to kneel. Her life reads like an epic. Triumph, war, love, intellect, tragedy, and an ending she controlled. Cleopatra was not a character crafted by storytellers. She crafted herself. Her memory travels through time on marble statues, ancient coins, temple walls, scrolls, and the imaginations of every generation that encounters her. She remains a symbol of smart leadership, bold decisions, and unforgettable charisma. Cleopatra did not fade when Egypt fell. She transformed into a legend the world still follows. And if Cleopatra's journey still echoes in your mind, if her brilliance, her courage, and her unforgettable legacy pulled you into the ancient world for a moment, tap the like and hit subscribe to join this growing empire of history lovers, and ring the notification bell so you're always first in line when the past comes roaring back to life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter of history.